Welcome to the third episode of The Red-Headed League by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Enjoy. Sherlock Holmes and I surveyed this curt announcement and the rueful face behind it, until the comical side of the affair so completely overtopped every other consideration that we both burst out into laughter. "I cannot see that there is anything very funny," cried our client, flushing up to the roots of his flaming head. "If you can do nothing better than laugh at me, I can go elsewhere." "No, no," cried Holmes, shoving his back into the chair from which he had half risen. "I really wouldn't miss your case for the world. It is most refreshingly unusual. But there is, if you'll excuse my saying so, something just a little funny about it. Pray, what steps did you take when you found the card upon the door?" Our client continued. "I was staggered, sir. I did not know what to do. Then I called at the offices round, but none of them seemed to know anything about it. Finally, I went to the landlord, who is an accountant living on the ground floor, and I asked him if he could tell me what had become of the Red-Headed League. He said that he had never heard of any such body. Then I asked him who Mr. Duncan Ross was. He answered that the name was new to him. 'Well,' said I, 'the gentleman of number 4? "'What, the red-headed man?' asked the accountant. "'Yes,' I said. "'Oh,' he said, 'his name was William Morris. He was a solicitor, and was using my room as a temporary convenience until his new premises were ready. He moved out yesterday.' "'Where could I find him?' asked I. "'Oh, at his new offices? He did tell me the address. Yes, 17 King Edward Street near St. Paul's. I started off, Mr. Holmes, but when I got to that address, it was a manufactory of artificial kneecaps, and no one in it had ever heard of either Mr. William Morris or Mr. Duncan Ross.' "'And what do you do then?' asked Holmes. Our client continued. "'I went to the 6 Coburg Square, and I took the advice of my assistant. But he could not help me in any way. He could only say that if I waited, I should hear by post. But that was not quite good enough, Mr. Holmes. I did not wish to lose such a place without struggle. So as I had heard that you were good enough to give advice to poor folk who were in need of it, I came right away to you.' "'And you did it very wisely,' said Holmes. "'Your case is an exceedingly remarkable one, and I shall be happy to look into it. From what have you told me, I think it is possible that graver issues hang from it than might at first sight appear.' "'Grave enough,' said Mr. Jabez Wilson. "'Why, I have lost £4 a week.' "'As far as you are personally concerned,' remarked Holmes, "I do not see that you have any grievance against this extraordinary league. On the contrary, you are, I understand, richer by some £30, to say nothing of the minute knowledge that you have gained on every subject which comes under the letter A. You have lost nothing by them.' "'No, sir,' our client said, 'but I want to find out about them, and who they are, and what their object in playing this prank, if it was a prank upon me. It was a very expensive joke, for it cost them £32. We shall endeavour to clear up these points for you, and first 1 or 2 questions, Mr. Wilson. The assistant of yours who first called your attention to the advertisement, how long had he been with you?' "'About a month then,' said our client. "'How did he come?' asked Holmes. "'In answer to an advertisement,' replied he. "'Was he the only applicant?' asked Holmes. "'No, I had a dozen,' replied our client. "'Why did you pick him?' "'Because he was handy and would come cheap.' "'At half wages, in fact?' "'Yes.' Now Holmes asked, 'What is he like, this Vincent Spaulding?' Our client continued. "'Small, stout-built, very quick in his ways, no hair on his face, though he is not short of 30. Has a white splash of acid upon his forehead.' Holmes sat up in his chair in a considerable excitement. "'I thought as much,' said he. "'Have you observed that his ears are pierced for earrings?' "'Yes, sir. He told me that a gypsy had done it for him when he was a lad.' Said Holmes, sinking back in deep thought. "He is still with you?" "Oh, yes, sir. I have only just left him." "And has your business been attended to in your absence?" Nothing to complain of, sir. There's never very much to do of a morning. That will do, Mr. Wilson. I shall be happy to give you, and I hope that by Monday we may come to a conclusion, an opinion upon the subject in the course of a day or two. Today is Saturday. What do you make of it, Watson? Said Holmes when our visitor had left us. I make nothing of it, I answered frankly. It is a most mysterious business. As a rule, the most bizarre a thing is, less mysterious it proves to be. It is your commonplace, featureless crimes which are really puzzling, just as a commonplace face is the most difficult to identify. But I must be prompt over this matter. What are you going to do then? I asked. To smoke, he answered. It is quite a three-ply problem, and I beg that you won't speak to me for 50 minutes. He curled himself up in his chair with his knees drawn up to like a horse-like nose, and there he sat with his eyes closed and his black clay pipe thrusting out like a bill of some strange bird. I had come to the conclusion that he had dropped asleep and indeed was nodding himself, when he suddenly sprang out of his chair with the gesture of a man who had made up his mind and put his pipe down upon the mantelpiece. Sir Asset plays at the St. James Hall this afternoon, he remarked. What do you think of it, Watson? Could your patients spare you for a few hours? I have nothing to do today. My practice is never very absorbing. Then put on your hat and come. I am going through the city first, and then we can have some lunch on the way. I observe that there is a good deal of German music on the program, which is rather more to my taste than Italian or French. It is introspective, and I want to introspect. Come along. We travelled by the underground as far as Aldersgate and a short walk to the Saxe Coburg Square, the scene to the singular story which we had listened this morning. It is a poky little shabby gentle place where 4 lines of dingy 2-storied brick houses looked out into a small railed enclosure, where a lawn of weedy grass and a few clumps of faded laurel bushes made a hard fight against a smoke-laden and uncongenial atmosphere. 3 gilt balls and a brown board with Jabez Wilson in white letters upon a corner house announced the place where our red-headed client carried on his business. Sherlock Holmes stopped in front of it with his head on one side and looked it all over with his eyes shining brightly between the puckered lids. Then he walked slowly up the street and then down again to the corner, still looking keenly at the houses. Finally, he returned to the pawnbroker's, and having thumped vigorously upon the pavement with his stick 2 or 3 times, he went to the door and knocked. It was instantly opened by a bright-looking, clean-shaven young fellow who asked him to step in. Thank you, said Holmes. I only wish to ask you how you would go from here to the Strand. 3rd right, 4th left, answered the assistant promptly, closing the door. Smart fellow that, observed Holmes, as we walked away. He is, in my judgment, the 4th smartest man in London, and for daring I am not sure that he has not a claim to be the 3rd. I have known something of him before. Evidently, said I. Mr. Wilson, assistant, counts for a good deal in this mystery of the Red-Headed League. I am sure that you inquired your way merely in order that you might see him. Not him. What then? The knees of his trousers, Watson. And what did you see? What I expected to see. Why did you beat the pavement? My dear doctor, this is a time for observation, not for talk. We are spies in an enemy's country. We know something of Saxe Coburg Square. Let us now explore the parts which lie behind it. The road in which we found ourselves as we turned round the corner from the retired Saxe Coburg Square presented as great a contrast to it as the front of a picture does to the back. It was one of the many arteries which conveyed the traffic to the city to the north and west. The roadway was blocked with immense stream of commerce flowing in a double tide inward and outward, while the footpaths were black with the hurrying swarm of pedestrians. It was difficult to realize as we looked at the line of fine shops and stately business premises that they were really butted on the other side upon the faded and stagnant square which we had just quitted. Let me see, said Holmes, standing at the corner and glancing along the line. I should like to just remember the order of the houses here. It is a hobby of mine to have an exact knowledge of London. There is Mortimer's, the tobacconist, the little newspaper shop, the Coburg branch of the bank, the suburban bank, the vegetarian restaurant, and McFarlane's carriage building depot. that carries us right onto the other block. And now, Doctor, we have done our work. So it's time for some play, a sandwich and a cup of coffee, and then up to the violent land where all is sweetness and delicacy and harmony, and there are no red-headed clients to vex us with their conundrums.